Hello, and welcome. Imagine a landmass, roughly the size of Western Europe, a territory nearly 80% covered by a 2-mile thick sheet of ancient ice. Now, imagine this colossal frozen island is home to only 56,000 people, scattered across a narrow, habitable coastal strip. This is Greenland. For centuries, it existed as a remote, quiet territory, an afterthought on the global map. But in the mid-2020s, that era ended forever. The ice that once insulated it from the world is melting, and what is being revealed beneath that ice is an object of staggering, almost unimaginable global desire. Right now, here in late 2025, this vast cold expanse has suddenly become the single most intensely contested geostrategic piece of real estate on the planet. It is the undeniable epicenter of a new geopolitical confrontation, a chilling race for resources, and an existential struggle for national identity. From Washington to Beijing to Moscow, world powers are mobilizing fleets, signing massive spending bills, and even making explicit threats of military force, all aimed at this one massive island. The future of the Arctic, the next generation of global trade routes, and potentially the very balance of power between East and West will be decided right here on this immense island of ice. Our story, like so many global flashpoints in our hyper-connected world, begins not with a treaty or a battle, but with a single, stunning political declaration. In early January of 2025, only weeks before taking office for his second term, Donald Trump held a press conference at his home in Mar-a-Lago, Florida. During this briefing, he explicitly laid out an audacious set of goals for American territorial expansion and control. After claiming, without providing evidence, that the Panama Canal was being effectively operated by China and needed to be secured, he then pivoted to the far north. Trump declared that the United States also needed the island of Greenland for vital national security purposes. Crucially, he went far beyond the suggestions of 2019. He questioned Denmark's legal right to the territory, urged the Danes to give it up, and threatened to impose devastating, high-level tariffs on Denmark if they refused to cooperate. And when asked directly by a reporter, he flatly refused to rule out using the United States military to acquire Greenland from Denmark through force if negotiations failed. The reaction from the governments in Europe and the Arctic was immediate and unequivocally negative. The prime ministers of both Denmark and Greenland immediately insisted that the territory is absolutely not for sale. In a symbolic yet powerful statement that month, the recently crowned Danish king, Frederick X, ordered an update to the country's royal coat of arms that more heavily emphasizes the position of the polar bear, which represents Greenland's continued status within the Danish kingdom. The message was clear: Greenland is staying put. But to understand why a United States president would risk an international incident over a frozen island that hosts barely 56,000 people, you have to look past the political theatrics and dive into the deep currents of history, geology, and global power projection. America's interest in acquiring Greenland is far from new. It goes back to the dawn of its own expansion. While Norse settlers discovered and settled the island around the year 1000 before eventually dying out, it was the ancestors of today's Inuit people who began arriving around 1450. 3 centuries later, in 1721, Denmark officially colonized the island. It was in 1867, the same year the United States purchased Alaska from Russia, that Greenland first officially registered as an acquisition interest in Washington. The United States Secretary of State, William H. Seward, who arranged the Alaska purchase, commissioned a report suggesting the acquisition of both Alaska and Greenland, a move he believed would apply pressure on Canada, wedged between them, to eventually join the United States. The interest resurfaced dramatically in 1916. Fearing that the Danish West Indies and the Caribbean could fall into the hands of Imperial Germany and threaten access to the newly constructed Panama Canal, the United States purchased the islands in 1917. As part of that crucial deal, Denmark agreed to sell the West Indies in exchange for the United States, formally recognizing Denmark's claim to the entirety of Greenland. Then came World War II and the Cold War. Greenland sits almost precisely in the geographical dead center between Washington, D.C. and Moscow. This position places it directly along the shortest possible flight path for intercontinental ballistic missiles, making it a front line of defense and a vital strategic staging ground. Recognizing this immense geopolitical importance, in 1951, the United States and Denmark signed a treaty establishing Thule Air Base, recently renamed Pituffik Space Base in 2023, in the far northwest of the island. Pituffik is one of America's most critical overseas military installations, a cornerstone of the United States Space Force. It houses an early warning radar system designed to detect any potential nuclear attack fired over the Arctic Circle towards North America. It is also the nerve center for satellite control networks over the North Pole. Today, Pituffik is not the only reason Greenland matters. The Cold War is back, and the Arctic is, quite literally, melting. The massive ice sheets that cover 80% of the island are retreating at an unprecedented and accelerating rate. This rapid melt is not just an environmental catastrophe. It's a monumental economic opportunity and a massive security threat. As the ice melts, three things are happening simultaneously, dramatically increasing Greenland's global importance. First, new maritime trade routes are opening up. The fabled transpolar sea route, which passes directly across the North Pole, is projected to be viable for year-round shipping within a few decades. This route could cut thousands of miles off the journey between Asia, Europe, and the eastern United States, potentially rivaling the Suez and Panama Canals in importance. Controlling Greenland means having the best geographical position to monitor, influence, and potentially control this future global shipping lane. China has already labeled itself a near-Arctic state and is pushing massive infrastructure investment in the region. Second, the melting ice is exposing an unimaginably vast trove of critical mineral resources. This is the ultimate prize. Greenland is estimated to contain vast, largely untouched reserves of some of the most vital minerals for the modern economy and future defense. Geologists estimate the subsurface wealth could be worth trillions of dollars, potentially as much as $10 trillion, making it the richest unexploited resource region in the Western Hemisphere. The United States government considers 43 of the 50 minerals critical to national security, and deposits of many of them are found here. The most valuable of these are the rare earth elements, a group of 17 metals essential for everything from precision-guided missiles and jet engines to smartphones, hard drives, and electric vehicle batteries. Right now, China utterly dominates this market, producing 60% of the rare earth elements and controlling 85% of the crucial processing. For the West, securing an alternative, stable source is an absolute strategic imperative, a true matter of national survival. Greenland provides that chance. Massive deposits have been discovered, such as the Kvanefjeld deposit in southern Greenland. This project is not just vast, it's complicated. Kvanefjeld is estimated to hold one of the world's largest reserves of rare earth elements, but the minerals are contained in a complex rock that also hosts large amounts of uranium and thorium. The co-presence of rare earth elements and radioactive materials forces a difficult choice. Greenland currently maintains a moratorium on uranium mining, a rule put in place to protect the fragile environment. But as long as the uranium ban is in place, the world's largest rare earth elements deposit outside of China remains locked down. Beyond rare earth elements, Greenland also hosts world-class deposits of graphite, a vital component for lithium-ion batteries. There are significant reserves of neodymium and praseodymium, the elements needed for high-strength magnets in wind turbines and electric vehicle motors. Furthermore, significant offshore reserves of oil and natural gas have been assessed. Third, and perhaps most pressingly, the minerals and trade routes are driving an urgent new Cold War military buildup. The January 2025 rhetoric from the United States has only intensified the ongoing security flashpoint in the Arctic. Denmark, a founding member of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, sees the threat clearly. The Danish government has explicitly recognized Russia as the primary security threat to Greenland. Russia, for its part, has been systematically rebuilding and expanding its network of Arctic military bases. Greenland's military significance lies in its position along the strategic pinch point known as the Greenland-Iceland-United Kingdom Gap, the deep water passage stretching between Greenland, Iceland, and the United Kingdom. With the resurgence of the Russian Navy, the Greenland-Iceland-United Kingdom Gap is once again the most important naval theater in the world. Russian submarine activity has increased dramatically, seeking to hold Western shipping lanes hostage. Denmark's response to this renewed threat has been massive and expensive. marking a fundamental shift in its defense policy in late 2025. In October 2025, Denmark announced a staggering $13.7 billion military spending plan, stretching to 2033. This includes the purchase of 16 additional F-35 fighter jets, bringing their total planned fleet to 43 aircraft, a dedicated allocation of $4.26 billion to specifically boost their Arctic and North Atlantic defense capabilities, procurement of new maritime patrol aircraft, drones, and 2 additional Arctic-ready patrol vessels, the establishment of a new Joint Arctic Command headquarters in Greenland's capital, Nuuk, the construction of a critical North Atlantic undersea cable directly linking Greenland and Denmark, securing communications and data flow from the potential risk of sabotage. Denmark is drawing an extremely expensive line in the melting ice, asserting sovereignty through immense military investment and a greatly increased permanent presence. This brings us to the most crucial and often overlooked factor: the people of Greenland themselves. The question is not just who owns the island, but who should decide its future. Greenland is currently a self-governing territory within the Kingdom of Denmark. They achieved significant autonomy with the 2009 Self-Government Act. This act, approved by 76% of voters, provided the critical legal pathway for Greenland to eventually declare its full independence from Denmark. The act recognizes the Greenlandic people as a people under international law, with the right to self-determination. A simple majority in a future referendum is all that is legally required to begin the final negotiations for full sovereignty. Yet, the path to independence is fraught with historical trauma and a crippling financial paradox. The most potent and immediate source of tension is the horrifying spiral case, or forced intrauterine device scandal. Between the 1960s and 1990s, Danish doctors systematically fitted thousands of Inuit women and girls, some as young as 12, with intrauterine devices, often without their full consent or knowledge, in a deliberate effort to curb the birth rate. This decades-long ethical violation finally culminated in a formal public reckoning in 2025. In August and September of 2025, the Danish Prime Minister, Mette Frederiksen, issued a formal apology on behalf of Denmark for the forced birth control. Furthermore, Denmark announced plans for a reconciliation fund to provide financial compensation to the affected Greenlandic women. The paradox of independence, however, is economic. Greenland is critically dependent on an annual subsidy, or block grant, from Denmark, which amounts to roughly $500 million. This payment accounts for over half of the local government's annual budget and approximately 20% of Greenland's entire gross domestic product. The dilemma is sharp. Greenland's right to its mineral wealth is tied to this subsidy. Under the current agreement, for every dollar of revenue generated from mining, the Danish subsidy is reduced dollar for dollar. This block grant trap means Greenland is financially incentivized to keep its resources in the ground until it can secure a complete replacement for the Danish funds. So, what are the 3 possible futures for this crucial island? The global contest for Greenland is driving the territory toward one of 3 possible fates. Scenario 1. Maintain the status quo, but with more friction. Greenland remains within the Danish realm, benefiting from the massive subsidies and the North Atlantic Treaty Organization defense umbrella. This is the most financially conservative path, guaranteeing the current quality of life and security. However, the political and ethical friction, exacerbated by the 2025 intrauterine device scandal and the constant, overwhelming foreign interest in their resources, continues to build. The local government is forced to manage the increasing global demands to open its resource sector, constantly balancing the need for development against the deep-seated desire to protect the local environment and cultural identity. Scenario 2. Full independence and the mining gamble. Greenland declares full independence, triggering the negotiated process with the Danish parliament. This gives them full control over their massive mineral wealth, finally severing the block grant trap. However, this path carries immense, potentially catastrophic, risk. The massive influx of foreign workers required for mining could overwhelm the tiny local population, creating an existential threat to the delicate Inuit culture and way of life. Furthermore, a newly independent, cash-poor, but resource-rich nation is incredibly vulnerable to state capture or rampant corruption by foreign mining interests. The very neo-colonialism they sought to escape. Scenario 3. The Compact of Free Association model with the United States. This path, often seen as a political compromise to satisfy United States national security needs without resorting to purchase or force, involves a compact of free association with the United States. This model is already successfully used by the United States with 3 Pacific Island nations: Palau, the Federated States of Micronesia, and the Republic of the Marshall Islands, under a compact of free association. Benefits for Greenland. Greenland would achieve full sovereign independence while its citizens gain the right to live and work freely in the United States, and the government receives specific United States federal grants for health care, education, and infrastructure. This replaces the Danish subsidy with American economic support. Benefit for the United States. In exchange, the United States is granted exclusive military access to the entire territory and strategic denial rights, meaning the United States can legally prohibit any other foreign military, especially China or Russia, from entering Greenland's territory, waters, or airspace. This third option satisfies the Inuit people's desire for self-determination, while simultaneously fulfilling the core national security requirements that Washington has had for Greenland since the Cold War. It's a way to secure the vital defense line of the Greenland-Iceland-United Kingdom gap and the Pituffik Space Base, without the political toxicity of a forced purchase. Ultimately, the destiny of the world's largest island must be decided by its people in the coming years. But the ice is melting fast. The minerals are being exposed, and the world's great powers are no longer waiting patiently outside the door. Whether Greenland remains a territory, becomes a new nation-state, or enters a new geopolitical alliance, one thing is certain. Its time as a forgotten, frozen backwater is unequivocally over. Greenland is now the ultimate prize on the planet, and the future is being decided in the ice. Please write in the comments, what surprised you the most in this video? Give a like and subscribe to the channel. Many more interesting, shocking, and informative videos are coming up.